Hello and welcome back to Introduction to Machine Learning. I'm Ludwig Botmann, and in this video I will tell you about classification and regression trees in a nutshell. In the end, you should understand the basic structure of a card model or of a tree model and the basic concept used for fitting card models. So, what's a tree? The basic idea of a tree is to divide the feature space into subregions, and for each of these subregions we learn a best constant prediction from the training data. CART is short for classification and regression trees, which means, well, we can tackle both numerical and categorical target variables, and these cards can model nonlinear feature effects, facilitate interactions of features, and be inherently interpreted. This is an example of a decision tree which also consists of a set of hierarchical binary partitions. So it's just an example for even on planning decisions, which could also be based on a decision tree. So you perform a set of binary decisions. So you ask yourselves, for example, first, is there a seminar paper due next week? And if not, you think about going to a festival, and if it's due next week, then, well, you think about if you have already done it or not. And then, if you're here on the right-hand side, if you think about going to the festival, perhaps you, need to ask yourself if you have tickets or not, and if not, then perhaps you will do something with your friends. So this goes further down, and you have more of these binary decisions to make. The classification and regression tree does exactly the same thing. We have always binary splits, and here we have an example of the iris dataset where we try to predict the species of a flower which has three classes: setosa, versicolor, and virginica, and we use features sepal width and sepal length. And also here you perform binary decisions. The first decision is, in this example, based on the feature sepal length, and if this feature is smaller than 5.5, then you go to the left side. If it's larger than 5.5 or exactly 5.5, then you go to the right hand side. And then you split again, you split again, you split again, until you're here at the bottom. So here in this plot there are quite some more annotations which will be explained in the specific video on that. So instead of this visual description as binary decisions, we can also describe trees through their divisions of the feature space X. So the feature space is visualized here on the right hand side. So we have two features, sepal length and sepal width. And what the tree does is it partitions this feature space into rectangular regions, which we can call Q, for example. So we have some splits. Here's a split, there's a split, there's a split, and there's a split. And in the end we have 5 different regions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which correspond to the 5 leaf nodes, so the 5 ultimate nodes of the card. With the formula we can describe it like this: f of x is the sum over some indicator functions which ask if the observation is inside a specific rectangle or not, and then multiplying this indicator function with a constant Cm, which is specific for each rectangular region Qm, which means that first you try to figure out in which subregion of the feature space you are via the indicator function, and then you just take the constant prediction here, which means that for all values, for example, or for all observations in this region here, the prediction is exactly the same. As said before, cards can have categorical and numerical targets, so we can perform classification, left-hand side, and regression, right-hand side. And the tree structure is very much the same here and there. The only difference is that, of course, when we have a classification, then this constant prediction will be a score or a probability for a class, where the constant prediction for regression will be just a real number, which is from the same scale as the target variable. So, how do we fit a card? Very shortly here in a nutshell, this is a recursive greedy search in a feature space. And in each iteration, the best split is selected. Of course, now we have to define what the best split is. We will do that in the deep dive, not here. But we do it recursively, which means in the very first iteration, we just have one split, in this case, with regard to CPAR length. And this split is exactly here, so CPAR length equals 5.5. If we are larger than 5.5, we are in this leaf node. If we are smaller than 5.5, we are in that other leaf node. And then we take what we have here and do a second iteration. So we split each of these nodes again. So remember, this was the first split. Okay. And then the second split may be here on the right hand side again with respect to CPAR length. And on the left hand side it may be with respect to CPAR width. So we already have 4 subregions. And then perhaps we split this middle subregion again here, make a new split with respect to CPAR width equals 3.1, and then we have the final tree. This procedure can run until each observation has its own leaf. That's possible, but not recommended, because then the tree will not generalize well and overfit. So in a very extreme case here, where each observation, or not each observation, but almost each observation has its own subregion, then it's really just an interpolation of the training data, which we already have seen is not a good idea. So we need some techniques to keep the tree small and informative, which we will tell you about in the deep dives here. And the last note here, in practice, we often use trees as base learners for ensemble learners like random forests, but also for ensemble learners like boosted trees. And these cards are very suitable base learners. And we will see more on this in the Random Forests chapter.